Hello everyone, with the new episode of the Leaders Lounge, I am Hesham Jamil Economywala, and as you know, whenever we come in the episode of the Leaders Lounge, we'll come with a very special guest in our show. So that's why today I'm here with a new podcast, and today I have a very inspiring guest. She is not only a powerhouse in communications and business, but also a three-time cancer warrior, a certificated cancer coach, and a passionate advocate for turning pain into purpose. And her courage, empathy, and energy has touched life across the world. And today she is here to share her story with us. So whether you are here to learn, to find hope, or just to be inspired, this conversation is for you. So let's dive into a journey of strength, purpose, and leadership. I am honored to welcome our guest today, Deb Krier, to the show, The Leaders On. First of all, hello, how are you, Deb Krier?
Hello, Hesham. I am so honored to be here, and we're going to have a great conversation.
Hmm. Okay, first of all, thank you so much for giving your precious time. And I have already shared a lot of you about you with our viewers, but still, could you please introduce yourself once again so that in our audience who may not know about yourself, you can get to know you better.
Sure. So, as you said, I'm a business owner. I founded my marketing firm, Wise Women Communications, almost 25 years ago. And we're a full service marketing agency, but we do tend to focus more right now, at least, on social media. I do have my own podcast. It's called the Business Power Hour, and I've done over 1,000 episodes. We started that back in 2010, and have been, it's a lot of fun, as you know. You get to meet some very cool people. And then I did start an initiative 3 years ago to help those who are also on a cancer journey. To provide them with tips and suggestions and ways that they can, travel on that very difficult road, but how can they do it?
That's nice. And the 1,000 episodes you have done, that's really amazing. So now we have to start our whole interview. First of all, it's always inspiring to know about the where someone's journey began. That's
Mhm.
why could you tell us a little about your early life and where you grew up and all about it?
Great. Well, I live in Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States now, but I grew up in Colorado, way up in the mountains. And my graduating high school class was the only one in the area. And I had 32 in my class. Just 32 were in my graduating class. From there, I moved down to the major metropolitan areas. So I lived in the Denver area, spent a little bit of time in Kansas going to school, but for the most part, I lived in Colorado, and it was fabulous. Love Colorado. It has so many different things you can do and see, and there's snow, there's places that you can uh, watch movies, sports, all of those things.
But
So I
what
loved Colorado.
what things you specifically very love about it?
It's pretty. I think that's probably one of the things that I miss the most. I'm a mountain girl, and people told me when I moved here to Georgia that, oh, there's mountains here. No, there are not mountains here. We have mountains in Colorado that are over 14,000 feet. And here in Georgia, they might be 2,000, right? They're hills. But it is just so pretty in Colorado. I was looking on somebody's Facebook page that's a friend of mine. They're getting snow. you know? And so it's always very pretty. You never quite know what's going to happen in Colorado, and I really miss that.
Oh, that's nice. Really amazing your past journey. Behind every strong person, there was usually a strong story behind it or strong motivation behind it. But were there any defining moments in your childhood that guided you who are you today?
Mhm. There were several moments. Many times it was when I would get encouragement from someone else to do what I wanted to do. And I think that's very important because we're not here alone. We need to build our team around us, whether it's great friends, family members, business people. We need to have people who are going to encourage us. And but probably one of the most defining, if not the defining thing that happened was when I was diagnosed almost 10 years ago with cancer. I remember telling the doctor, I'm sorry, I don't have time for that. And she of course kind of laughed at me like, well, you're going to have to make time. And I knew quite a bit about cancer. I had worked in that area before. I worked for a cancer doctor, which is known as an oncologist, and I also worked for the American Cancer Society, which is a very very large nonprofit here in the states. And I the way that I developed several complications, very serious life threatening complications from the treatment that I selected,
Yes,
and
yes.
yeah, it's just very very strange.
That's really amazing. Like to very given many of rewards and roles. So
Mhm,
I have a question related to that. That before
mhm.
all the titles and the roles, there was simply you. So what kind of person were you growing up? Curious, shy, ambitious, or
Oh, not shy. Not shy. As you could probably tell, I am not shy. I'm an only child. So I don't have any brothers or sisters. But I grew up, my mother especially encouraged me to do whatever I wanted to do. So I played sports. Now, I didn't play them well, but I played sports. I was also in band, in choir, in theater. I was an A student, but it was great growing up. And of course, it was a totally different time. When and where I grew up, I could be out on my bicycle, by myself at 10 o'clock at night as a kid, and not nobody really worried about that. And I missed those times. They were obviously much simpler times. That now here's something that's gonna amaze you. I When we grew up, where I grew up, we had just three television channels, and I never touched a computer till I went off to college.
oh, that's nice. That's really amazing to listen that you're not shy in your childhood. That because I
Mhm,
asked you because many people, many successful people, especially,
mhm,
they were shying in their childhood. So that's why
mhm,
I asked you.
mhm.
But like the people often face real challenges and
Mhm.
that prepare for them for the battle later. Did you experience any personal hurdles early in the life that you now see as a blessing?
I think it probably was a challenge growing up where I did, because we were pretty isolated. When it would snow, we couldn't get out, from our area, and so it did limit some of the things that I did, just because we weren't in a big city. But and it was also a time when women my age were not always encouraged to go to college and do things like that. We were supposed to just get married and have kids, and luckily my mother said, no, you're going to go to college. But those were definitely, it was very different when I grew up. And there were challenges with that.
Hmm, nice. uh, Really amazing and exciting to share your life journey, explore your life journey. So, like I find the most leaders carry a spark from a young age. So, did
Mhm.
you always envision yourself as someone who would lead or advocate for others or not?
No, I had no idea that I was just going to, get a college degree, go to
Okay.
work for another company, and, that would be what I would do. It didn't really occur to me to start my own business until I was in my 20s, and realized that I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to be in charge. And there are so many people who don't like that. But
Yes.
back in my 20s, I thought, and it kind of came back to, I think I was always in charge. And so, but yeah, growing up, that never would have occurred to me to start my own business.
That's right. I believe that every successful people, in behind every successful people, their family plays a huge role in their
Mhm.
successful journey. So that's
Mhm.
why. Uh, how did your family support or influence your path as a communicator or
Mhm.
an advocate?
they didn't understand what I was doing, you know, which was that
Yes.
was that was okay. But they all, no matter what it was, they encouraged me. You know, they might not understand what it was, but they were going to encourage me. My father worked for the same company. He actually worked for the state of Colorado for over 30 years. He didn't change jobs at all. And my mom she only had part-time jobs because she, took care of the home and things like that. But she also was very big on volunteering. And to her, that was very important. And she taught me that is to give back to your community. And so that was always very important to her, was to be a volunteer.
Yes, my life journey is like totally same to you. Like my father don't know what I'm learning because
Mhm,
the as the student of Rehan school,
mhm.
the Rehan school is totally different to the other schools of
Right.
Pakistan.
Mhm,
And in Rehan school, we didn't study from books and notebooks. We
mhm,
will learn things from the laptops and mobiles. So that's
mhm,
why my father didn't understand what I am learning and what I am doing. The what's the mission of Rehan school. That's
mhm,
why my life is really same to you. That
mhm.
my family don't know what I'm learning. So
Right.
passion usually grows from something personal. So when did you first discover your love for communications and storytelling?
I've always told stories. And my majors pertained in college pertained to call or to stories, to marketing, things like that. It was just I it just seemed to come easy to me. And now I'm not creative. I can't I'm not an artist. So I can't paint. I can't do anything like that. That was not anything that I could do, but I could write and I could tell stories, and so I really love doing that. And then I was probably in my 30s, and I was talking with someone about what I was going to do, and I didn't know. And he told me, he said, "Why don't you want to get paid for the things you do for fun?" And so I was doing marketing and things like that as a volunteer for organizations. And it made perfect sense. I enjoyed doing it there. So why not want to make it part of my career or my entire career?
That's really nice. But now my next question is my third question. That what inspired you to do podcast on social media? Like why? What's the reason behind it?
Right. So I started back in 2010, and I was someone else's guest, and I went on their podcast, and this was long enough ago that we had to go into a radio station and we recorded it there. And so I was there and she was there, and she was somebody that I knew very well. And after we were done, I thought, well, that was fun. I want to do
Yeah.
that. And so I went to the people who owned the radio station and I said, I would love to do a business podcast. And and at that point they didn't have anybody. And so I started doing that. So for a year or so, I would go into the studio. My guests would come in also, so they were all local, obviously, and we would just have these great conversations, and it was really a lot of fun. And then I moved from Denver to Atlanta, and it's about 800 miles apart, so clearly I could not go into the station anymore. So at that point we started using Skype, and I found it very interesting that they did away with Skype earlier this week.
Yes.
And
Yes.
but
Yes.
but I did, we used Skype, and we still tried to do the programs live. And technology didn't always work well. Most
Yes.
of the time it did, but it didn't always. And then that was when I started thinking, hey, I can pre-record. And the cool thing about pre-recording is then I could do it at whatever time works for me and works for my guest. So I could do like you're doing. I could have guests from around the world.
Yes.
And then I transitioned to Zoom, and my podcast is actually hosted by C-Suite Network. And so that's a very business focused platform, and I just really enjoy it. Or I'll be honest, I wouldn't do it if it wasn't fun. I wouldn't do it.
Yes, it's a really fun. I'm agree to you because doing podcasts around the whole world, we will learn many things
Mhm,
from the
mhm,
different life journeys with different inspirations. So that it is also you are inspiration for me because you have done 1,000 interviews that are very huge.
Mhm,
We have also asked of doing podcast around the whole world
mhm,
and doing podcast with our students of school.
mhm.
So
I have. Mhm,
you know
mhm.
anything about the Rehan school or Rehan Allah Wala?
I know a little bit about it, from, I looked into it, and I know you do a lot of focus on AI, and I love
Yes.
that.
Our school focuses on the artificial intelligence, and
Mhm,
our school mission is to create 1,000 future leaders that will
mhm,
impact 10 million people
mhm,
positively and
mhm,
solve at least one problem from
mhm.
the whole world. That's
Right,
a really big mission.
right.
So,
Well, and what I love about your school too is that most kids here in the United States would never dream of doing what you're doing.
yes,
You all are so incredibly professional, and I've loved doing the podcast with the other students at your school.
okay, I will tag you in my post, and then our student of our school will be approach you. So now we have to move on another. So I imagine your personal strength had roots long before your diagnosis. So
Mhm.
what core values have you held in onto the throughout your life, or no matters the circumstances? That's really important.
Yeah, I think there's the basics. Try and be good. Try and be respectful of people. One of the things that I've always done, and I've actually done it more now that after I got sick, was try to be funny. Now, I'm not saying make fun of people or anything like that, but
Yes, yes.
try to make other people laugh. Try to enjoy life. I was just at the doctor yesterday and was talking with them, and we got to dancing and having a good time. And I think that's always been a big part of what I do is how can we enjoy life and how can we make other people, laugh? Because we don't know what they're going through. And sometimes we might be the only person who smiles at them. So, or ask how their day was, things like that. So it's always, try and be as nice as we possibly can to people. And sometimes that's hard.
Yes, right. Sometimes it's hard, but we have to focus on it. So now everyone focuses turning points, but what was the first major your turning point in your career or life journey? Turning point.
I think it was when I lost my job, right? And had to think, what am I going to do? And it was not a bad thing to lose my job. It was expected. The company was doing a lot of changes, but then I did think, well, what am I going to do? And so I think that was a big challenge, and that was when I decided to start my own company. And so it was, did I want to go back for another company, or did I want to be my own business owner? And so that, I think, was one of the big changes that I had to go through.
That's a nice thing. Now I will move to your career in business and entrepreneurship. So the business who can be intense and fast paced,
Mhm.
as all know. But what has been your biggest lesson as an entrepreneur?
Find mentors and work with other people. Sometimes
Like
it's
us.
very hard, yeah, and so we want to have mentors, and that's one of the things that I know your school really encourages, is for you to work with mentors. And I have several, and I think part of that is because I my business is in my home, so I don't always see a lot of other people, but we need other people to be helping us with our business, maybe to tell us, here's some suggestions, or we can say, hey, I've got this going on, what advice would you have? And so it's very important to have those other people that you can reach out to and be asking for help and support, and then of course you give them help and support back.
Hmm. That's nice. Thank you so much for doing this. Now, entrepreneurs often wear many hats. How did you balance your roles in PR, marketing, and leadership over the years?
But I think one of the big things is we absolutely have to remember to have our personal life. Sometimes when you are the owner of the company, you work and you work and you work and you work. And so it's about setting boundaries. I also set boundaries for my clients. I tell them, these are my hours that I work. If you communicate with me during those hours, I will respond. But if you communicate with me on evenings, weekends, things like that, I won't respond until the next business day. And that was kind of hard to do because it was kind of like I was telling them I don't want to work with you, but they respect that also. And so, I think that was one of the harder things I had to learn was that I was not working 24 hours a day. And it was very important to have personal time. Now, it's not always going to balance depending on what's going on, but it is very important to have personal time and to make sure that you're doing that.
Hmm, nice, that's it. Uh, Totally right. Like running a business while navigating life's challenges isn't easy. So,
Right.
how did your professional skills help you stay grounded during personal hardships or
Mhm.
any hard things on your life journey?
Right. It's very important that you have, like I was saying, that you have other people that you can rely on. I got very ill and was actually in the hospital for 7 weeks and couldn't work. But I explained that to my clients, and they said, "You do what you need to do." And like on my podcast, we ran old episodes of the podcast, so that I didn't have to worry about that. But it is a challenge to, especially when you're dealing with something like a cancer diagnosis, cancer treatment, things like that. But having my business gave me something to think about and something to do. So I wasn't thinking, hey, I'm sick. And I think that was very important.
Right, that's also very important. So now, a successful career often involves risk taking. So,
Mhm.
what was the boldest decisions you have made in your professional life? Any risks you take, or any things related
Mhm.
to this?
You know, it, Anytime you're deciding what you're going to do, it's a
Hmm.
risk. Are you going to offer a product or a service that you think is great, but nobody else will pay you for it? And then sometimes some of the bigger expenses or changing your product or your service. We saw a lot of that obviously during COVID when people could not get out and do the business that they had done for many, many years. So you had to say, hey, what am I going to do? And that is very risky. And of course, we don't like change. We like to stay the same, but it
Yes.
is, it's great to think about, hey, how can I stretch and do something new?
Hmm. That's nice. That's great. I really enjoyed it. Now, I want to move on the most important part of your life, cancer journey and advocacy.
Mhm,
So, your story took a personal turn. Can you walk us through the moment you first
mhm,
learned of your diagnosis?
mhm. Well, when I first learned about it, it was a big surprise because I didn't think there was anything wrong. And they found that there was an issue when I had an X-ray. And so they said, hey, there's a problem, but we weren't all that worried about it. And then unfortunately, it got much more serious. But I was annoyed. It was like, no. And but I met it kind of with the same way that I'm just, well, we're just going to do it. We're going to take care of this. It didn't quite work that way because I was very, very ill, and I have had two other diagnoses of cancer, and so I'm still in treatment, even almost 10 years later. I was at the doctor for 4 hours yesterday, but it's, as I said, it's important just to keep going. And I tell people, I don't want the alternative because the alternative would be I'm not here. So I will do whatever I need to do to keep going. And that's what I tell people, that I work with who are there. They need to decide what's going to work for them. And they're the ones that are in charge, not their doctors. not their friends, not their family, all of those. They're the ones who have to decide what they want to do. So, for example, what type of treatment they're going to have. And I know people who've said they're not going to do treatment. That's
Yes.
their decision. And then we as their friends need to support whatever their decision is and not try and change their mind. And I did choose to have chemotherapy, surgery, and radiation, but there's so many other things that people can do. And so it's very important to do what you think is going to work best for you.
That's right. You're right. I'm totally agree with you. That do what you love.
Mhm,
And I have many lessons. I have listened too much about your that project, like try not to die, right?
mhm,
And launching try not to die live was such a bold move. So,
mhm.
what was your vision behind that platform?
So it was my business coach who told me that I should do that. And she said, you didn't go through everything that you went through without using it to help others. And I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to be the person that was helping other people. But I realized that I already was. Doctors call me in when they have students, they call me in when they have new patients and things like that. And so, we decided to do this. And the name came from the trying not to die. We get so caught up, especially when we're facing a challenge like this. We focus so much on trying to not die that we forget that we have to live our lives. No matter what that is, we have to live our lives. And sometimes that's, another 5 hours, sometimes that's another 50 years, whatever it is. But it is all about, how are we going to continue living our life? Because cancer is just a very small part of me.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it's just kind of there, and I deal with it and then I go on.
But people see it as a very large thing.
Mhm.
So, what do you want to ask about that, people?
I always want to encourage people to be the best that they can be and remember that they are in charge, and not to let anybody tell them they can't do those things. When I was younger, I mentioned the fact that people my girls my age did not go to college. It was like, well, I'm going to college. So always remember, you can do whatever it is that you want to do, and don't let anybody tell you can't.
That's nice. Yes, totally right. Now I have a question that, like, what you know about the Pakistan? Any places, any food, or anything about Pakistan?
I don't know a lot. I have talked with several other of your classmates. I know that right now there's some issues going on, right?
Yes.
And that's a really easy way to put it. It's pretty scary. And um, but I also know that it's a beautiful country, and obviously the people are absolutely wonderful. But yeah, it's a bit of a challenge right now, and I so much respect that you just keep going. Yeah.
Yes, Pakistan is full of beauty, and the hospitality of Pakistan people is very nice. And but India was starting like tackling Pakistan, and
Mhm, mhm.
uh, but there was some issues. But
Well,
what we
and
do about it?
you can't worry about that. I mean, it's there, so you're not ignoring it, but you can't get caught up in worrying about it, because it is kind of like having cancer. You just have to keep going every day.
Yes, totally right. Thank you so much for motivation. And I'm very enjoying our conversation, but our time is limited. Like I scheduled 30 minutes interview, so can I extend it to 5 more minutes?
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much for giving your precious time. So now we have to move mental resilience and legacy and lessons. So first of all, many people struggles to cope with change. But what advice you give to those facing unexpected life duties?
You know, you need to acknowledge that whatever you're feeling is okay. So maybe you're afraid, maybe you're angry, maybe you're scared. Those are normal reactions to change. But then we have to figure out, what can we do? Do we need more information? And sometimes it's, I'm just not going to do it. That's perfectly fine. But
Yes.
change is not, change is just a thing. We go through life changing, and the important thing is to grow from the changes.
That's nice. You give a really helpful advice for the people. So, can you tell us that you turn your life into a platform for change?
Mhm.
What legacy do you hope to leave behind?
I hope that, part of it is that people remember how important it is that they are advocating for themselves, that they are important, and that they are loved.
Okay, that's nice. Okay, so now I think that you have walked through fire and still shine. But
Mhm.
how do you stay connected to joy and gratitude today?
Sometimes it's hard. You know? But you have to make an effort to do it.
Yes.
And sometimes, like I said, sometimes it's really hard, and it's okay to have bad times and bad days. But then say, okay, I'm going to I'm going to get out of this, and I'm going to have joy in my life.
Okay, that's nice. Really, very good. Really appreciate it. So now we have to move on to the next topic of future visions and
Mm.
inspirations. So you're still moving forward with energy and purpose. I have seen that.
Mhm.
What's the next for you in your personal or professional journey? Next
So
step.
I did just launch the cancer coaching business. A week ago is when we launched, and so the goal is that I will work with business owners and executives who have a cancer diagnosis. And the reason I'm doing that is because they're really busy people anyway. And then
Yeah.
when they're told, hey, they have cancer, they don't know how to cope with that. And so, I'll help them with time management skills, with business continuity planning, things like that that they might not be doing, but they're going to need to do in order to go through this journey. But I change a lot of things. There's some things that I'm volunteering for that I'm actually gonna stop doing and let somebody else have the honor of doing that. I'll still be there to support them, but maybe it's time for somebody else to take over and for me to find new things to do. And that's
Yes.
one of the things, you always want to be looking for something new, right?
Okay. So my next thing is really important that if someone wants to become an advocate, like
Mhm.
you are so advocate, so what's
Mhm.
the first step they should take?
To think, can they really do it? It's hard.
Yes.
You know, One of the things that I think about is I'm going to be working with people who are very ill, and that's hard for people to do. But you have to think about why you want to do it. Are you wanting to do it to make money? That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But are you wanting to do it to help people? And then what are you going to do to make that happen? Do you need special training? And I did do special training to become a cancer coach. I'm certified as a cancer coach. And but what do you need to do to do that? And look at what others are doing. It's okay to research people who could be your competitors. You're going to be unique no matter what it is. But yeah, it's okay to do it. But yeah, think about why it is that you're wanting to do it.
Yes, totally right. And I also see that many people are struggling with their own passion, but
Mhm,
when they see other was successful in other
mhm,
anything, so they will move toward. But they are very close to success, but they
mhm,
move to another because
mhm,
by seeing other that he was
mhm,
successful by doing this. So that's a really bad thing that I see that people don't have to left their passion.
mhm,
People work with their passion.
mhm,
So now we have to like end our interview. So not everyone knows how to support someone with cancer. So what
mhm.
advice would you give friends, family of a patient?
Well, thank you. The biggest thing is don't ignore it. We sometimes think that. They might not want to talk about it, or it's going to make them feel bad. But if we ignore it, it's like it doesn't exist. And so I tell people sometimes the best thing you can just do is to say, I'm sorry this is happening to you.
Yes,
Then
right.
they can, then they can kind of take it in whatever direction they want to. If they want to talk about it more, they can. If they just want to say thank you, they can do that. But yeah, acknowledge that they're going through it and that it's a very challenging time. And whether it's cancer or something else, it's okay to say, I'm sorry this is happening to you.
Yes, totally right. Totally agree with you. People should do this. Now we have to end the interview. So, any advice you want to give to my viewers or Pakistanis,
Mhm,
my classmates, my school
mhm.
members, anything?
Right. Well, especially for your classmates, learn, learn, learn. Always be learning. Um, and which that's part of what I love about your school, right? Because you're learning so many things that are new, and I love that. Just always continue to be learning, to be searching out people and ways that can teach you new things, and be always continually improving yourself.
That's really nice. Thank you for your kind words.
Thank
And
you.
thank you. Thanks so much for giving your precious time again and again. And you are the real example of, you are the real inspirations for us, for all of my colleagues and my classmates. So about, I like when I listen about you that you have done 1,000 episodes of your podcast. So I'm really shocked. So thank you so much again for recovering your precious time. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I learned many things from your life journey about the cancer, about the advocacy,
Mhm.
about the legacy, about the business coaching, stuff, anything. So I hope my audience will also enjoy the conversation and learning many things about this. So we will. This is our today's my guest, Deb Krier. I think I'm pronouncing right your
Yes.
name.
Mhm.
So I hope you all enjoyed the conversation. See you in our next interview with any new special guest from USA. Till then, Allah Hafiz. In the end, as always, Pakistan, Zindabad. Allah Hafiz.
Bye-bye. Thank you.